Have you ever wondered if we're alone in this vast universe? Are there other beings existing in the vast expanses of space? You know, on a clear night, one can look into the heavens and see literally thousands of points of light that our scientists tell us are other planets and stars. Is it possible that some of these planets nurture intelligent life, and have they visited us? Such visits have been recorded throughout history, and a Gallup poll shows that at least 15 million Americans believe that they have seen an unidentified flying object. In our investigation of the UFO phenomena, we've talked with 4 experts who have looked into some aspects of beings from other worlds. In Alabama, there's a man who's devoted many years of his life to investigating sightings of UFOs. He's Professor Edward Plans at the University of Alabama.
We look at the weather. We try to determine what flights were in the area, for instance, if there were any flights, what aircraft. Did it have any characteristics to establish it being unidentified, such a glow, a color? Did it make any noise? Where direction did it come from? What part of the sky was it in? Then you go back to the witnesses. You try to establish the credibility of the witnesses. Were they people who were involved in just building a home, not indulging in any extracurricular activities and so forth? Are they mentally stable? Do they have any physiological disturbances and so forth? This is what you have to establish.
Even though UFOs have been reported in the U.S. and Alabama for quite a while, Professor Plans says one recent incident in August of 1977 at Hayden Mountain near Birmingham is rather significant.
A man was coming home one night at 11 o'clock with his wife and small child, and as he looked to the left, he's pulling into his road that led to his trailer, he observed this object. Now, he said it was very dim. The 2 lights were on, but they were very dim. When the middle light came on, it was very brilliant and illuminated the structure. And as a result, he drew a picture, and if I might show you this is the picture of the object. And this is what makes me believe that he was reliable, because he said that he wasn't sure what these 2 objects or 4 objects coming down underneath were. He said they looked like flaps, but he didn't say they looked like landing gear. So if he wanted to, you know, hallucinate or lie about the incident, he could have said they were legs defined and so forth, but he wasn't sure about the appendages on the bottom. But he did draw this picture and said that it flew to the north, hovered over his trailer. He went in to call the police, and then when he came out again, it had flown in an easterly direction, and then as it stayed and hovered, another one came out of the north about 200 feet above this one. This one rose to just below the other one with red light blinking, then finally both of them took off in opposite directions. No noise. He said it was close enough that he could determine if it was a helicopter, but it wasn't a helicopter, because he says when a helicopter comes over those mountains, it rumbles the whole mountain. So to this day, we still don't know what it is. Reliable person, impeccable character as far as I'm concerned, and yet we cannot describe this thing or define it in terms of any aerial phenomena we know.
In sifting through great amounts of data about UFOs, Plans has developed some definite ideas about the origin of those objects classified as unidentified.
Well, I think we can fit them into 2 or 3 categories. One is that they might be extraterrestrial. We have not established this, but the possibility exists. The second is that we're going through what we describe as a paranormal behavior, that people might be hallucinating, that the mind in the right conditions, the right variables, might set up an image in the mind, and the people view this as an unidentified flying object. So, and then we have the third category, that maybe what's really happening are aerial phenomena, which we cannot explain according to our physical laws. Look how many years, for instance, that people believed that the sun revolved about the earth. For many years, this was entrenched in people's minds that the sun revolved about the earth, until Copernicus came along and proved that the earth revolved about the sun. So we have several categories. We cannot define any particular category. They're all being studied because, as I said, of the absence of absolute data. Now, when you talk about extraterrestrial visitation, it is possible. Even Carl Sagan, Dr. Carl Sagan, says it's possible. But he doesn't think that it's going on at the present time. When you consider that maybe the nearest star is maybe 6 or 9 light years away, if you had to consider the possibility of traveling to one of these stars, you might be out in space all life, all your lifetime. So until we get down to the basics, that we have to establish hard data to determine what these are. And I think that this is what we're trying to do.
Someone who has spent the last 20 years involved with the UFO phenomena, like Professor Plans, tends to stick with the facts when voicing a personal opinion on the existence of extraterrestrials.
Whether I want to believe or not is not determined by the incident or how many we had. I have to work with absolute data.
Even though the Air Force's investigation of the UFO phenomena has ended, there are still some around who work closely with Project Blue Book. Jim Eastman of Montgomery's Maxwell Air Force Base is one of them.
Well, Dennis, I came in to Maxwell in early 1972, and at that time the Albert F. Simpson Historical Research Center held all of the records of Project Blue Book. They'd been transferred here when the Air Force got out of the investigation business in 1969. Because we were out of it, however, didn't mean that we stopped getting questions on it. As long as we held the records, people were interested in these records for one reason or another.
What were most of those inquiries? What do they consist of?
Mostly they were from the groups that are set up, to my way of thinking, to prove that in fact these are extraterrestrial vehicles, and number one, or number two, that the Air Force has known all along that we're being visited by creatures from outer space and has tried to hide it from them. And consequently, once Blue Book became declassified, they wanted to start getting into the records so they could show that in fact the Air Force had been hiding stuff all along.
Were they able to do that?
I don't think so. I couldn't. Because once you go through those records, you find out that the Air Force was very, very honest about what it put down. If something was unexplainable, they said it was unexplainable. If there were natural phenomena occurring at that time, which might be a possible explanation, they gave the possible explanation. In some cases, the chief scientist on the project, Alan Hynek, who is at Northwestern University now, as last I knew he was still chairman of the astronomy department, has said since then that maybe he kind of went overboard to debunk them, and he's had a tendency to back off some. But in general, I don't think the Air Force really was trying to hide anything. We certainly never found any little green men or any smashed up saucers.
Where would they have been kept if they'd found those?
Well, let me put it this way. In 1974, there was a news story, showed up suddenly on the radio, picked up by television, picked up by the newspapers, that the Air Force was hiding the bodies of, let's say, various numbers of little green men, and at least one crashed flying saucer at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. Then, somewhere in the transition, it came up also that we were hiding the bodies of little green men up here on the second and third floor.
In this building?
In this building. And when they finally tracked it back, it seems to have been some sort of a spoof or a hoax that was set off at a radio station down in either Lakeland or Lake City, Florida. Somebody had, for whatever reason, and I wouldn't try to guess what their reason was, had made this announcement. Somebody else had picked it up somewhere else. It had gone out on another radio station, and pretty soon media all over the country were repeating it. Now, I went upstairs and looked several times, and I couldn't find any little green men up here. My friends up at Wright-Patterson assure me that they haven't been able to find any up there. I don't know, they could be lying to me, but I doubt it very much.
What would it take for the Air Force to get interested in investigating UFOs again?
I'd say that it would take the reversal of the three things that got them out of investigating UFO sightings. First of all, there would have to be some indication that in some way the UFOs were posed a threat to our national security, or maybe I should say and, some indication that the technology present far exceeds anything we know here on Earth today, and finally, that there would be some evidence, some hard evidence, that was not, couldn't be waffled, that there were extraterrestrial ships involved.
Personally, how do you feel about unidentified flying objects or visitors from outer space?
Well, I try to be objective about it. Subjectively, it's a lot of fun. That's the best word I can give to it. It's interesting. You get to meet and talk to a lot of people that have seen a lot of very weird and unusual things. Things that oftentimes are natural phenomena, but natural phenomena which very few people ever get a chance to observe. That's the subjective part of it. Objectively, I have a little bit of trouble going beyond just enjoying it, because I'm trained as a historian. I was raised as a historian. The historian deals with facts, not with opinion and not with myth or legend. And I still can't get my hand on any fact that really tells me, hey, maybe there's something here.
Do you believe in UFOs?
No, but I don't disbelieve either, because if you want to go the other way, there's no, there's nothing that says hard and fast that there couldn't be something out there. Now, logically, if you look at the size of our universe, the chances that any people that are technologically advanced enough to cross from even the nearest stardust that could support a solar system like ours would be interested in anything we were doing, to the extent that they would keep constantly revisiting us, is very, very slim.
What about the men who study the stars, the astronomers? Their science is concerned with the position and behavior of heavenly bodies in the universe. Sam Barnes, the program director for the Gale Planetarium in Montgomery, says that recent programs about space have greatly increased the general public's interest in the UFO phenomena.
All of these TV shows, these movies, Star Wars, Star Trek, that sort of thing, it has made the kids especially aware of space and the possibility of traveling through space. And you'd be surprised now when the kids come to the planetarium how much they know about space and how much they have learned from having attended these science fiction TV and movie shows.
What sort of involvement have you had with the study and the observation of unidentified flying objects?
Well, we've had several occasions to present programs about UFOs entirely, and other programs included UFOs, and as a result, why, we have actually had the UFOs sailing around here in the planetarium chamber, much to the horror and delight of the kids and some of the older people that actually frightened them when they would see these UFOs sailing around in here.
What does a show that deals with UFOs consist of?
Well, sometimes we'll study the possibility of UFO and realize how little we know about them. You see, everybody that sees an object that can't be rationally, well, know what it is, they think that it must be something from another world. And when we begin to think about how far away these other worlds would have to be, then we begin to realize, well, if there are beings visiting us from other worlds, they are certainly a long ways more advanced than we are, and they know something about the laws of nature that we don't know. For instance, we know that the nearest star to us is only 4.5 light years away. That means that if we sent a light beam from here to the nearest star, take 4.5 years for it to get there. And our fastest spacecraft only travels 7 miles a second. And that's moving on, because if I say and 1 and 2, a spacecraft will have gone from here to Prattville. And at that speed, it will take it 100,000 years to get to Alpha Centauri. So you see what we're talking about, the difficulty. But of course, we don't know what is out there. When we think about how much our science has advanced in the last 50 years, now it doesn't mean much to you, but to me, I can see a lot of things that have happened in the last 50 years. But if our Earth, say, is 5 million years old, billion years old, then there must be other Earths out there somewhere that are much older than that. And if they, say, are 1 billion years older than we are, think of what sort of a science they could have developed in a period of time 1 billion years longer than we've had to do it. So we may actually be being visited by beings from other worlds.
What sort of questions do you get, particularly from the younger people, about unidentified flying objects?
Well, mainly, do you believe in them? Do you believe in UFOs? Well, kind of like asking me if I believe in Santa Claus. I certainly do. I believe in UFOs because too many people who don't have hallucinations have seen them, but we don't know what they are yet. We never have been able to pin down, say, this is a piece of material off of a UFO, or this is a UFO, or this is an occupant of a UFO. There's always something that's just lacking to complete the verification.
Religion has always played an important part in the existence of man on planet Earth. So what do the theologians say about the possibility of the existence of intelligent life elsewhere? A local minister, Dr. Thomas Butts, has of late been exploring cosmology, or the study of the creation of the universe.
Dr. Butts, is there anything in the Bible that would possibly conflict with the ideas people have about visitors from other planets?
Not to my knowledge is there anything that would directly conflict with it. There is not anything that directly endorses it, but I do not see in principle any conflicts in the Bible with that.
What does the Bible say about such things?
Well, one of the things you have to remember about the Bible is that the people who wrote it did not have the perspective of cosmology that we have today. They were at best geocentric, that is, they thought that the Earth was the center of the universe. And they weren't wondering about whether or not there was life in outer space. They were wondering whether there was life across the mountain or across the sea somewhere. And so they really weren't concerned about, this was not a question to which they addressed themselves as such.
What would happen if an unidentified flying object, a space saucer as it were, landed and the occupants presented themselves to the people of Earth?
Well, you can be sure that we would be greatly shocked and interested in knowing what sort of intelligent life came from another place. We would first want to know about their religion and philosophy, their theology, That'd be one of the first things I would want to know. I'd want to know what they shared with me in principle about what I know from the Bible, for instance.
What would it do to some of the people's belief that this is the planet, this is the only place where life exists?
Well, it would shake them up considerably to find out that there was life from another source, as new discoveries always shake us up. But I think that the pervading possibility of the existence of life in other parts of the universe is very great, very great.
What if these same visitors presented themselves with a theology that was very, very close to our own? Perhaps maybe a Bible in another form?
Well, if this were to happen, I think it would validate all that we've been teaching in the Judeo-Christian tradition and in the tradition of all the great religions. If what they came saying and teaching was close to what we have, I think we would rejoice at this.
What are your own personal feelings about people who could exist on other planets, unidentified flying objects, as it were, if they were visiting our planet?
All right, I believe that the possibility of the existence of intelligent life on other planets is great. They would not be persons exactly like us because they would perhaps have developed along other lines physically, but the key point would be intelligence. In my own heart, I believe that we have been visited and will be visited again, and that in time there will be contact. I don't have any evidence of this that I could show, any tangible evidence. Even the Air Force's UFO Blue Book doesn't offer any concrete evidence. But there is enough sketchy evidence, and there's enough of possibility that deep down I believe that it does exist.
The UFO phenomena is one that cannot be easily explained. It is something that each of us must determine whether we believe. In the course of this report, it has not been our purpose to either prove or disprove the existence of unidentified flying objects. Rather, we have sought to bring you information so that you can make up your own mind. Still, the fact remains that there are unidentified flying objects in the skies overhead, and perhaps one of these days, just perhaps, the mystery of UFOs will be resolved. I'm Dennis Latham reporting.